I don't even want to play in general if I'm not having fun. There's no point for me. Like, so it just puts it into perspective of, because I think in sports culture we're like, winning is everything. It feels so good. It's this high or whatever. But have had so many moments where on on paper I've been in a successful situation, but I felt so terrible and it wasn't enjoyable at all. And so it means nothing to me that I won or that I was there. And it just really matters that we're enjoying and being present with our life. To me, it's like been such a service to view the world as well, because in my opinion, I'm coming from like the darkest place I could ever come from to where I feel now. And I know I'm not alone in these dark places that I've felt. And I want to just tell people, like, stick around. Like this, you can really feel this within yourself. And we're meant to. Like, we should like our ideas. We should think that we're funny. We should want to hang out with ourselves. And I felt like I grew up in a space, in a world that was telling me differently, and I couldn't do that. And there's way more pressure now in the youth to be more intense in this sport. There's so much more money in it. You have to do things a certain way to get seen by colleges and get scholarships. So it is going to be a bump. It's going to be a ride like this if you're just fully attached to soccer. But if you can pull back and understand the things that soccer gives you, maybe you can find different avenues to experience those things when soccer is at a low, when you didn't have a good performance, when someone's being hard on you or you're not getting along with your coach.
Welcome to the Gamma Seeker broadcast. I have Sinead Farrelly with me today, and I am so excited to have her. She is a World Cup player and is going to bring us into what it is to be a professional athlete, what is required out of you, and the things that she would like to see change in the sport. Based on experience for both of us in professional athletics, there are some things that we can improve. So again, this is the Gamma Seeker broadcast where we're going to talk about optimal performance, optimal recovery, and thank you, Sinead, for taking time out of your life to have this conversation with me. I grew up with a really amazing friend that was in elite professional soccer, and I am really thinking about her as we're doing this. We were 15 when she fractured her back and had to leave the sport, so I feel that there are many teenagers out there that are devoted to the sport like you've been, and I would love to speak to them loud and clear from our hearts today.
Amazing. I'm so excited. I'm really happy to be here. And in terms of just speaking to the younger athlete, I feel so much of my perspective that's changed from retiring last year. I've been thinking so much about my younger self and the youth and the generations coming up in the sport, and how, yeah, exactly what you said. I think there needs to be a lot of shifts in order to take care of them better, mentally, emotionally, physically. And I think competitive sports can exist while we do that. And so it's been so excited just in my own journey to unlearn a lot of things and see things from a different perspective. And then also have these conversations with you and other former athletes and just see where we connect and see things going in the future. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about what got you into the sport, how you fell in love with it, what made you want to go pro?
Totally. So I was thrown into soccer when I was 5 years old. I grew up in a very Irish town. My dad is from Ireland, born there, immigrated here when he was in his teens to come over for work. And we live in a very Irish populated town. And so soccer was really big. There's Gaelic football. And we as kids all just got thrown into that. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. It was a space where I could be free and run and also be creative. And I ended up just kind of organically finding myself at new levels. So it was, club team, state team. When I was 14, 15, I was going to the national team with the US. They start youth national camps at that age, and they used to have them at this Home Depot center, it was called, in California. So every few months I would get to fly, and I had all these friends all over the country, and we would just get to train at the top level. And that was the peak of my happiness probably when I was playing soccer. I think as I got more intense, it's hard to keep that love of the game because there's a lot of layers added onto that. But yeah, I just absolutely fell in love with it. It was the one place where I really felt movement and presence and my authentic creativity in that space. I wasn't overthinking. I wasn't feeling heavy at all. It was my safe space. And so we would grow up going to, there was a league that folded when I was younger. I would go to these Philadelphia Charge games. And if ever anyone remembers, why can't I remember what it was called? But so we watched the 99 World Cup. If there's any soccer fans here, that was like when the women's team won the World Cup and really was like put on the map. And we just looked up to them so much. And I never necessarily thought that I was going to play professionally, but I just wanted to play for as long as I possibly could. And I ended up getting a full scholarship to go to University of Virginia and play there, which was such an amazing experience. And I got drafted to Philadelphia, which is where my family was from. So I was playing in my hometown for the first year of the league, which was not the league that is now. So I played professionally for 6 years in the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League, that is the current league now in the US. But I was around when the league prior, the WPS, was around and folded. So I feel like such a veteran in that sense, and really have seen so much of the shifts that have changed in the professional league here. But yeah, I got drafted there. After that first year, it ended up folding, and I had this weird in between time, and then got picked up for the NWSL. I played in Kansas City. I played overseas in Cyprus too for Champions League. I played at the Portland Thorns team, which is in Oregon, Boston for a little bit, and then this last stint, I was at New York, New Jersey, Gotham, and we ended up winning a national championship, and it was so fun and awesome. But yeah, I think just my journey to becoming a professional athlete was I wanted to keep playing. I was what I felt like pretty naturally talented. I didn't feel like I had to work too hard. I just felt like myself out there with the ball. And I just got the opportunity to get drafted and play there. I will say my relationship with my sport began to change when I became a professional. And I'm curious, like, I know I'm not alone in that experience, just when your intensity rises and there's more pressure, and definitely depending on your coach and the people around you, how that really can, what I would say, like almost distort my love of the game, which was something that I really struggled with. But yeah, in the sense of just like my pure love for the game, the fact that I got to play for so long and play at a professional level was a dream come true. So that's a long answer to your question.
So there's like 5 questions I have. What do you think, I have to ask this, what made that club fold?
So the whole league folded. So basically, there was a huge hierarchy, I will say, of teams at that time where there was no salary cap. So you had like some of the best players out in a team in California that were getting paid so much money. And I was a rookie getting paid like 15K at that time. And so, but there wasn't that many fans at the game. So people were just losing money. There was no stability. We weren't involved with the US Federation. It was just kind of a system that was built alone, and I don't think had the support to continue on. So it ended up folding. There was like a weird year or two in between. And then the NWSL formed in partnership with the US Soccer Federation, which had a pretty strong base because they have the US men's team and the US women's team who were also like starting to gain a lot of attraction. And so, yeah, it was just like lack of support, lack of funding. I'm sure there was a lot of like business issues there that they didn't take into account, but just bleeding money and not getting anything in return.
Okay, cool. I figured that much, but I just wanted to see if there was anything else there.
Anything else crazy?
Yeah. And then you went to the World Cup, right?
I did. I went to the 2023 Women's World Cup with Ireland. So I grew up going to national camps with the US team. And if you don't play a cap with the full team, if you don't play a real game, you're not tied to them, basically. And because I'm dual citizen, because my dad, I had the opportunity to, and this is like part of my story as well, I had 7 years away from the sport. I retired for the first time in 2015 after having a car accident. I ended up coming back and playing for a year and a half in 2022, 2023. And when I made the Gotham roster, I was in talks with the Ireland national team coach, got invited to go to a camp, ended up making that roster and going to the World Cup that year in Australia. It was the craziest year of my whole life and such a whirlwind, something I never thought I was going to be able to do. And especially to represent Ireland, which has always been such a big part of my family and my upbringing and who I feel like I am. And so many of my childhood memories are from Ireland. But because I grew up in the US system, it was just something that wasn't really a possibility. So the fact that, like, as an adult, I got to go to the World Cup and represent Ireland was just, I never could have imagined it. So it was such a cool plot twist of my life.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps, honestly, when you
It
tell
was
me about
cool.
it.
It was also so hard. It was almost one of the lowest mental places I've been when I was at the World Cup, which was really interesting. And I think it was because of the pressure. But when I separate that and the actual experience, we were in Brisbane, Australia, beautiful beaches in the city, and just getting to be there with the team and have that experience was absolutely insane.
Isn't it interesting where sometimes when you're living through it, it's overwhelming. And
Oh
then
my God.
after like the overwhelming part is done, you look back at it, you're like, oh, that was so much fun. And you're like, actually, I didn't have fun, but it was fun.
Yes, exactly. And I think for me it was I hit my lowest, and there's something about when you hit your low and you have to come back. There's this overcome energy of just like, okay, the worst happened to me in my mind. It was just I didn't felt like I performed on the first game, and I just really wanted to show up and play well, and I was really in my head, and I just like wanted to disappear, and but I couldn't. I had to keep showing up, and then the fact that I just didn't quit was like, okay, I didn't die. Everything's okay. I can continue on, and it was like that low, but it also was like such a pivotal point for me to evidence for my brain to see nothing bad actually happened, and I just have to keep continuing on.
So I would call that in my archetypal language, the victim turning into the champion. So
Mm.
like something scary happens, it makes you either feel like you sabotaged yourself, right? Or it makes you feel like you sold yourself out in some way because you didn't show up the way that you wanted. And then you still have to take responsibility and then, you stay back in the moment and change it. As a singer, it happens if you're the only singer and you miss the note,
Yeah, right.
then you can't run off stage. You have to like kind of recenter and then, try to stay as present as possible to get back into it. Can you talk to us about like what that mental low was and how you coach yourself through, or maybe like what you would do to improve better?
Yeah. So I think for me, so come like my comeback is what I would say it. I was away from the game for 7 years, and I came back and played for this 1 year. I was on Gotham playing professionally, and then I got called in to go play with Ireland. That situation was very difficult in a sense because there was women and girls who were training their whole life to be on this team, and I ended up coming in pretty quickly and taking someone's spot, and that's just difficult in a team environment, and everyone was like super nice. It's just that there is tension there. I didn't have these like built up relationships with these people, and so by the time we went to the World Cup, I had only been in one or two camps with them, and that's just for like 7 days, 10 days. And I didn't have those deep relationships of just turning to people and just being like, this is what I'm really struggling with. So I felt a little bit isolated in my experience. And just from my knowing what I know now, I just think anytime when you think you're dealing with something alone, it feels way harder and heavier. And so I already felt a lot of pressure to perform because there was like a story built around me coming back and making this World Cup team. So, and I'm just have already internalized so much pressure growing up that I felt externally. And so I wanted to do well. I wanted to prove myself. I also wanted to have fun. I wanted it to be present. Like there were so many things that I just wanted to be basically perfect at. And showing up to this first game, which we played the home opener in Australia against Australia. So there's 75,000 people in the stadium. I'm in a small tunnel as we're walking out to the field, and we get out and there's lights and like gladiator noises. Like, this is what it feels like. It's genuinely like a movie. And the overwhelm, like, I'm sure you felt this in music and athletics. Just, I'm like, I can't handle this. I'm not capable. And I'm just breathing, trying to stay present. And I found that when I came back this year with my club team, Gotham, and with Ireland, I really struggled with feeling paralyzed on the field, almost internally, and
Mm-hmm.
just playing afraid, just not feeling confident in myself to be free and be myself. And I don't want to play my sport if that's how I feel. Like, if I feel really constricted, that's not the reason why I'm out there. And so I just, I only touched the ball a few times. I didn't like make mistakes per se, but I wasn't part of the game. And so much of who I am as a player is I want to be so in the game and just feel like I'm connecting people and doing this. And I just felt like I didn't do my job. I got subbed out like after half, not after halftime, like part of the second half. And I just remember coming off the field and just feeling like I let everybody down. And I think we lost 1-0 in that game. But yeah, it was just this feeling of I don't deserve to have a spot here. Thinking about what the people who could have been here could have done. I didn't have any like family there with me. So I just felt like super alone in my experience. I'm feeling emotional talking about it. And yeah, I just that feeling. And I know this was so internal for me, and it was exaggerated internally for me that I felt like I let an entire country down. Like, that's how much pressure that I felt. Something that like I realized that I did when I existed in the sport. Anytime I felt like I didn't play well or we lost or anything, I felt like I didn't deserve to smile. I felt like I didn't deserve to just be happy and exist, because who I was as a person had just like diminished 50% or something. And so I just had this feeling walking around. I felt shame existing around my teammates, my coaches, people back home who like went to a bar to watch the game. Like, I just felt like I let them down, and I just had to sit in it. It felt like I sat in darkness. And I remember my roommate, who was another American player who was recently in camp as well, and I'm so happy I had her because I was able to just share some of my anxiety that I was dealing with. But I just remember actually spending a lot of time in the room with the curtains down in the dark. Like, I wanted to be in a shell, and that's where I go when I want to feel comfort. And yeah, I just had these looping thoughts of how bad this felt in my body. And I think the only thing, like, you sit in that enough and then you realize I have to prepare for another game or I'm going to play again. So I don't really have the space. Like, I can't be in my dark room forever. And I think something shifted in me when I just asked myself, okay, you're feeling all of these things. Are you going to quit? No. So what's the other option? Exactly what you're saying, almost like victim mentality to like gaining some kind of control and accountability. Like, I have to keep going. And I felt like I had this spark that was building. I got a little like angry almost. I like when I get a little like feisty, like almost you have something to prove, but not to anyone else, just to yourself. Like, I know I can do this. And I remember for the next game, I just felt more myself. I wasn't, at 100%, but I was just feeling a little bit more myself. I got another 45 minutes in. And then for the last game, which it didn't matter, we weren't going to continue on, but we were playing Nigeria. And I just felt so much more free. It's hard with those tournaments because I just had 3 games basically. And the way that I started, even though for me, if I look at it now, I'm like, I'm really proud of myself for that being my start and kind of building up and getting out of that. But, the athlete in me wanted to perform 100% every time for that game and just be so awesome and have our team go through. And those things were out of my control and whatever. But I think you asked another question about like if I could go back or how would I change it? I don't know. Did you say that?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things there about adrenaline and preparing for adrenaline. And like the way that you just described the gladiator tunnel, you're such a good storyteller. I really was feeling the
Oh, thank
emotions
you.
quell within me.
I was almost crying. So
Yeah. Thanks for delivering it. I feel like you kind of took me with you. So when you come through that tunnel, like what on earth could prepare you for that kind of adrenaline dump and then not feeling like super camaraderie with your teammates, that's, by itself a whole kind of mental game of trying to feel like you fit in and like working as a team. But then when this onslaught happens, it's kind of like nitric oxide hits the body and the heart rate goes absolutely nuts. And then once the adrenaline hits, the heart rate goes nuts, the pupils dilate, the blood rushes to the muscles, and we can feel paralyzed. And in golf, when no one else can take the swing for you, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have to take the swing, even if, 1,000 people are watching you. And no, I've never had 75,000 people watch me. So that sense of adrenaline that you had, I can only imagine. But there is a real sequence to when the adrenaline dump happens and the heart rate starts to quicken. And what I've learned about interviewing athletes across so many different sports is that it's all a matter of being in the present moment. And that's why the mighty breath, when we start to control the breath rate as the heart rate increases, and we open the toes up and we consciously start to relax the body. And then that's when a lot of people go into their hypnotic trance, their affirmations of like, I can do this. I've been built for this. I've been training for this. I'm the best in the world. Like fighters will often be like, I'm the best. I'm the best. They have their like psych up routine. Patrick Houston, he's a world champion archer. He has an affirmation that he reads. And when he set a couple world records, he was like sleeping in between rounds. And then when he started to realize he was kind of performing differently, he would fall into that affirmation. So if you were to go back again, I wish that you would have had mighty breath and fascia flow in your
Same.
body.
No,
And
literally
then
same. Yeah. No, go. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. And then a little affirmation of keeping it playful. And like what I've learned a lot from like Tiger Woods' process and Michael Jordan pre and post tournament, they had a real ritual of preparing for the onslaught of adrenaline and keeping the body hyper relaxed, because that paralysis feeling is real for all of us, and for singers that like walk up on a
Mm.
stage. Okay, so if you were to go back there again with the knowledge that you have now, what would you tell your previous self?
I mean, I would just be doing things so differently. If I knew what if I had the knowledge now that I did then, I would be doing fascia flow every day. My body in general was so tense while I was playing and contracted, and just getting to work on that every day, 5 days a week. I just know based on how I'm feeling in my body now, how much that would have helped. And yes, with the mighty breath and just knowing, I didn't even know that I could relax my body. Like just even different breath works. I never saw someone, I wasn't seeing like a therapist or a sports psychiatrist or something that was telling me. I wasn't doing breath work before anything. There was no connection for me to the breath, and that I had some kind of like control over my body when it was in those states. I would have just felt so much stronger in like even who I was. I don't even think back then, and it wasn't even that long ago, that I could have said the affirmation and thought it, because my body was too worked up. So if I had the tools that I did now, doing the mighty breath, being able to slow my breath rate down, getting to that place of being centered, then I can come back and remind myself, I can do this. I am good enough. But once you're already in that place, your amygdala is already grown, you're scared of everything. You can't come back from it unless you know how to. And I did not have the tools back then. And so the way that I just would have even approached my body and my mind would have been so much more gentle and open, where what I was doing was being more harsh, being more constrictive, which was not making me believe in myself. So I wish that, yeah, I had found your work or knew about it prior, because it would have just changed everything for me. And it's like too bad. I'm like, the part of me that wants to go back is like, darn, like it could have been different, but it's all a learning experience, obviously. So, yeah, the things that I've learned about my breath and my body and fascia have shifted so much for me, and also like helped me shift to how my body was in the sport, and how much I think even in that regards needs to shift in the sport of having athletes take care of themselves in the proper way. And I'm sad that doesn't really exist right now, in my opinion, in my experience.
So let's talk about that. Like, what would you change in your sport since you've walked through it?
So I get like in terms of, I guess the one big thing is there is a disconnect from your body when you're an athlete, in my opinion. So, although we use our bodies and they're the vessels to perform and compete in our sport, we are taught so much to push through extreme pain. If we feel certain things, you're not really given space or time to even, to me, like we have these numbers. People are coming in saying, "Oh, you have to hit the numbers. Like this is how many miles you train, this is your speed, whatever." And we put so much weight on these numbers instead of like what's the person experiencing in their body. And I think the numbers have a place, obviously, and there's so much science around that, but I do think there's a lack of space for players to build a relationship with their body so we can trust the players when they're saying, "This is feeling off. I feel constriction here," or having people in the medical space that are looking holistically at the bottle instead of, "Oh, you have a quad injury, let's needle it, let's get us an image on your quad, oh, there's nothing there," when it could be, knowing about fashion, like how every single thing is connected. It's missing that, and you also aren't giving space to the players to form a connection with their body. Like I think about fascia flow and how so much of that is I'm feeling into my body what the sensations are against the tennis ball, against the softball, and getting to know the different spots in my body, whether they're dull or electrical or radiating. I'm forming language to myself in my body about what different spots feel like. And a lot of the experiences I've had in the athletic world is, we're just warming up and stretching so you can get through this practice. And we're just giving you treatment so you can get through this game. And then once that, we do it again next week instead of really knowing we have a long season and checking in with the players and giving them the ability to trust and build a relationship with their own body. I think we almost externally outsource it to these people in power in the medical field or our performance coaches that aren't looking at it holistically anyway and aren't giving us as athletes any opportunity to be part of the conversation and really like speak for ourselves and get to know our body, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I feel like the PTs, when I was injured, they felt like they knew what was better for me than what I knew.
Yeah.
And they kept giving me the same exact solutions. And the solutions were just to get me through the next game, they were not to get me well. And I feel like a lot of elite programs, they abuse the body so that by the time you're in your 30s, you're washed up. You're
100%.
too old to play. Your body's too broken to play unless you take sovereignty back into your body and you fix it. But there is such a state of trust that you have because these PTs have been trained, these doctors have been trained with athletes like you. So obviously, we should trust them. And it's kind of hard when you wake up from that illusion of like, oh, you guys have set us up for early onset arthritis. You guys have set us up for joint pain and like serious injury. Like even the fact that we've learned now that when women are on their period, because there's so much opening that has to happen in the lower body for the uterus to swell double, triple its size, the fascia becomes lax. And I never took off a tournament or practice when I was on my period. And now that I've learned about what happens to the fascia, it puts every single female athlete at an incredible risk to train while they're on their menstrual cycle. And I think a lot of people that have developed issues with their ovaries that are athletes, it's because we hyper trained when our body was asking for rest.
100%. And I post when I retired, I had to get surgery on because I had cysts in my ovaries and a lot of issues that really once I was done, like it almost like in the next 6 months I had all these like health issues and stuff. So it was really interesting. And I remember as a child, I was super late to getting my period and I was so tiny, so active. And I just feel like, yeah, there was absolutely zero thought to our bodies as women. And I know there's a bunch of studies as well because they've kind of came in and out of the space of pro athletes of just people tearing their ACLs when they're on their period and just way more risk of injury when you're on your period. And the fact that that's not taken into account is absolutely insane to me in one sense. And then in the other, it's like, well, the system isn't really built that way. So it's almost there's like this, we think we're going to get a prize at the end for pushing our body past extreme limits and suffering so much to get the win, to play the most minutes you could ever play. And exactly what you're saying, the we exist to just survive, it almost feels like, in our career, and then you're just left because there's not really that much support post career either right now. Like there's people that are dealing with issues that don't have the support that they need to deal with them, and they're on their own. They didn't really learn that much in the sport how to connect with their body, so they come out of the sport disconnected. They've just been told what to do, what to show up for, and you have to like unlearn those things, then learn a relationship with your body, which can be really shocking. Like that's been my experience from being disconnected from my body for so long in a sport and seeing how much I put myself through, to coming out of it and really trying to like open and be more gentle and give myself space. I'm just like, I genuinely abused my body. Like there's even so many emotions that I've had to go through with that, like grief and rage and the chronic issues that I feel like I'm dealing with right now. I'm like, was it worth it? You know, there's parts of me that I'm just like, for what? It's a lot.
It's intense falling in love with a sport, isn't it?
I felt like it was fine. It just got distorted. Like my love for the game, it was so pure. And I don't think professional sports has to exist in this like very, very intense way. I think it can be so much more, it can still be challenging and competitive and all of these things without some of the damage that I think that is caused to the people in the system. I'm curious, like what, yeah, like what you think, because I think people have this idea of pro sports and like has to be this way.
I see it in business too. The
Yeah.
hustle culture is what
Mm-hmm.
Daniel and I both talk about often, about the type A concept of always needing to go, 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 go. And I often wonder if it's just a toxic part of American culture because we respect the hustle so much. And even up until COVID, it was kind of frowned upon to take a day off of work if you were sick. You know, people would brag like, I've never missed a day of work in 20 years. And like that's, I think the consequence of maybe like having a couple world wars and like growing up in the boomer generation, the way that they had to grow up, they didn't respect time off. They didn't respect the weakness. And I think we push that too hard. And now we've adopted this concept of like, if you want to be the best, you have to push harder than the person next to you. But what I keep finding in optimal performance is it's a balance, it's a harmony. And even at the most elite, like it's very interesting in pro golf when you're around some of like the top 1% of the world and you realize that they have extreme mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
They are not well balanced individuals. They kind of have a bit of like OCD compulsive issues with their rituals and their sequences. They are so committed that they're almost like borderline superstitious about how they coexist in their life. And golf is like a highly mathematical sport and it's long-winded. So you hit a shot, you have to wait another 5 minutes or 4 minutes before you hit your next shot. So there's all this internal conversation that you have to keep in check. And at the elite level, and like I've had so many like pro caddies in my life and pro athletes, and the caddies have incredible stories.
I'm sure. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yes, about like, little minor issues and like borderline Tourette's that starts to happen within people when you can feel the attention and energy come on you. And like artists particularly can feel this because you walk out from behind stage and it's like an onslaught of this energetic stimulation. And you either belong there in your mind and body or it is overwhelming, but you can train for it. And like a lot of people that are incredible athletes and artists, and they're like, I don't know if I have what it takes. And it's like, you do, but you actually have to start microdosing the adrenaline. So in golf, there is a million ways that we would create pressure in our training program between each other, because it's not like, even in college, the team aspect, you have 5 players and you take 4 scores. So you take your top 4 scores. So you can kind of like have a horrible day and the team can carry you. And you can have an excellent day and you can carry someone else. And it's day to day. Like some people play amazing in the rain and the wind, and some people, only play amazing on bluebird days. So there's this aspect of kind of navigating yourself. But in training, we would gamble. And like in, college athletics, you're not allowed to gamble, and you have to like sign all of these waivers. And like I was part of NCAA D1 when you weren't allowed to be a pro. And then they changed it. Like as soon as I graduated, that next
Wow.
year they changed it. And it was like there was all these kids making crazy money while they were in college, and
I
like,
know.
which is cool because they
Yeah.
sell merch, like they sell jerseys. Kind of makes sense that it would profit them because it's so much to be an athlete. Mentally you can't work and be an athlete. You have to be on scholarship or have someone supporting you. But we would gamble. And $100 is a ton of money when you're in college. So if $100 was on the line, you were in it. Like your car payment depended on it.
Right.
So that would be the way that we would kind of microdose this state of fear over a 4-foot putt. Because
Yeah.
you could hit 10,000 4-footers on a practice green and make them all. But then you're out there and money's on the line and it's only you that can do it. And you kind of have to go through this mental process of like, okay, like I can do this. I've hit 10,000 of these. It's just a 4-foot putt.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I won $100 and I like almost vomited on the green. And all I had to do was make a 3-footer to beat them by 2. And I missed the 3-footer. I hit it 3 feet by. And I had to have a whole conversation with myself to make it for par on the way back. The mental operation at even the most elite, like there's some amazing women like Christy Kerr. I remember watching her lose the major league championships when I was still in high school, and she missed like a bunch of 2-foot putts. And here's the best in the world choking over a 2-foot putt, like something that, is kind of money for any player. But yet when you put the adrenaline in, you have to train. So the next year she came back and she won that major league championship with a ritualized putting sequence that she would do on a 2-inch putt. She became so intense about like, okay, I have to go through my process. Like I'm not going to try to tap anything in. So golfers you solidify these, pre-shot programs in order to anchor it into your body. But it's kind of funny when you're around the best in the world and you're like, wow, I don't want to be anything like you. Like,
Yeah. No, it's almost, and okay, so this is my question for you, because I think that we haven't even tapped into, there's been great athletes and stuff, but for a lot of those great athletes, they've had to be maybe 99% they're thinking about their sport, or you're just so focused, you're spending all of your time, maybe you're overworking and whatever, but you're being successful. I would argue that we can be better than that if we do things differently. Like it doesn't have to be exactly what you're saying. Like a more balanced approach would actually produce a better athlete. And I'm curious what because some people
Michael
would say
Jordan.
opposite, like you have to put in hours every
Yeah.
single day to do it, to be good.
So like Michael Jordan to me is like still one of the best athletes in his aspect of being present moment. So like when like golfers and basketball players, like an end top level golfer, even at the most minimum, you're on the road 27 weeks out of the year. So regardless of how you process failure, you're going to play again next week. And the way that Michael Jordan would change his energy after a game, win or lose, he would go and play cards with his teammates and they would gamble playing cards. And I always just felt like, man, that is a very overlooked part of being on the road. Tiger Woods would play ping pong. And the reason when in both interviews, when they're like, why do you do this? It's like, because it pulls me out of the game. It pulls me back into the moment. And when we look at the adrenaline dump that happens pre-tournament or pre-game, you can feel it. Like you can feel the onslaught. And like you can kind of clock when the yawns start. That's the body prepping for the dose that you're about to get. So it's like the nervous system becomes really lax and you almost get like sleepy, you get yawny. And it's because your body knows what's about to happen. So it's like trying to kind of reorient, get the immune system to digest your food, get a little tired. And then for me, it's about 10 minutes now, like before I go, like, let's just say, and like I'm lecturing and there's, a few hundred people, I will feel it about 10 minutes before. And there'll be like a heart rate increase. And then my job is to stay present. And what I do is I'll feel my feet on the floor. I'll feel like my outfit. I stay with my breath constantly. I try not to get into projecting myself into the future. And, when I look at Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, they both had family lives. They both had this, and I really like Michael Jordan really as more of an example for me. Like, he played a whole other sport. Like, he would go and play golf. So he would pull himself out of basketball in order to just train his athlete playfully. And
Yeah.
he would still gamble. Like, he would still put pressure on himself in these totally side hustles, like being a baseball player, like when he turned pro for baseball. And I think that it stays more playful when you allow yourself to kind of cross-reference it, like to do more things than just one. But there's so many that have been top of the world where, like, Greg Norman's a great example. For 7 days a week, he played 36 holes a day. And he got to the number one in the world because he outtrained everybody around him. And golf is such a nuanced feel sport that, like, if you take a month off or a few days off, like, you don't feel it the same way in your fingertips. It's like a painter, So I really think that the Michael Jordan set a precedence of, like, having a family life, doing things outside that still kept him in the moment. Because when we get to what's under pressure, like, you and the next athlete, you guys have kind of the same muscles, you have kind of the same exact equipment, but who can handle the intensity of that present moment kind of most playfully?
Yes. That word playful is like such a, like, that should be an important part of the game. We're playing games. Like, sports are games. And I love even what you did in when you played golf and you did the bets. Like, it's still in a playful way. Like, it adds that pressure, but it also takes the pressure off because this is just a game. There should be some level of enjoyment and fun into it. And I think when we get caught up, especially if we're feeling adrenaline and we feel constricted, it's almost impossible to reach that sense of playfulness, that sense of creativity. And so really coming down into the body and calming down gives us access to those things. Because I just remember, I know I wanted to be playful. I know I want to play with joy, and that's how I feel better. But just feeling like I couldn't even have access to it because of, like, the state of my body. It wasn't even an option.
Well, a lot of athletes feel that way because you get burnt out.
Yeah.
And I can't believe the percentage, like, of people that go to play college golf and then they quit for several years. And I was one of those people. Like, after I turned pro after college, I gambled for about 4 months, and I had gone through a lot of, like, deaths around me. I had 5 people die within a month, and I was in an existential crisis, and I was like, I don't give a shit about this little white ball.
Yeah.
And I left the sport for about 3 years. And as I interviewed other pros that were around me that were back in it, and they're like, oh yeah, I played college and I didn't touch a club for 5 years after. And it's like, why? Like, here's something that we all love. Why did we push away from it so hard? And it's because of this onset of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And when we dial into pressure and we really question it, like, I've read so many sports psychology books. I had a sports psychology, like, person when I was in college, and it really comes into who can be the most playful under pressure, because that constriction feeling doesn't do anything for us. So if, like, we could go back and learn how to play from that childish state, like you were talking about club sports, when you're 14 and 15, that's when it's just magic,
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I remember being in games where we won, but I still had this constriction feeling, and I didn't care about the win. Like, it was just like, I don't even want to play in general if I'm not having fun. There's no point for me. Like, so it just puts it into perspective of, because I think in sports culture, we're like, winning is everything. It feels so good. It's this high or whatever. But have had so many moments where on on paper I've been in a successful situation, but I felt so terrible, and it wasn't enjoyable at all. And so it means nothing to me that I won or that I was there. And it just really matters that we're enjoying and being present with our life. Like, that is why should be a big part why we're here in general as humans. So
The number one golfer in the world, he just like took over the spot and he gave an interview and he said, "Why would I want to encourage the next generation to play? Like, this is not where fulfillment comes from." And it was like witnessing a spiritual awakening captured on ESPN. And it brought me to tears because it's like, wow, like there's so many up and coming athletes that are deeply fulfilled by their sport that would love nothing more than to play pro. And then when you get to that level, the gear shift takes the playfulness out of it. And then we start to ask ourselves way deeper questions of like, well, where actually does my fulfillment come from? So you retired once and then you came back into it and now you're retired again. Can you talk to me about what fulfills you now?
Yes. And I will say, after the first time I retired, which was, and I was in a car accident. And so I was dealing with that and like was also in some kind of existential crisis at that time, which was so needed. But even though I had these like 7 years away, I never got to touch on the things that I'm getting to touch on now in my second retirement because I just had so much wrapped up into the game. But nature is the number one thing. And that even the first time I retired was, I've always been like a lover of earth. I feel like my first memories are growing up when I was born in America and we moved to Ireland right after I was born. And my grandparents had a farm. And I just like have memories of like being out with the animals in the rolling green hills, and we had fresh butter and milk and just being connected to earth, and always loving that but not really understanding the language, or that like knowing that, oh, it feels good when I'm here, so if I'm not feeling good, let me like connect to nature. And it wasn't until I left sport, kind of, or maybe when I was in my off seasons, even, you would have like 1 or 2 months where you had time to just kind of be, and I would find myself like hiking or just wanting to go sit by the creek. And I started to realize like, this, I feel so safe here. So soccer used to be that space for me, and when it kind of felt like it got distorted when I went professional, nature was that space for me. And that kind of led me to more stillness, to more like journaling, getting back into art. I loved doing art when I was growing up. I wanted to be an artist, and just moving my bodies in different ways. Like I would say just like movement is really important to me, but not as like in that intense way. Like bike riding, listen to my music, being out in nature, journaling, being with people that I love. That is, and feeling like I'm being of some kind of service as well. But those are the most fulfilling things to me in my life. And they're accessible. Like they're around me everywhere in abundance. And the fact that like I have those tools almost, and I know I can fill my cup up with those, is so nice. So, and I hope to, we live in Chicago right now and we're in the city. It's the first time I've ever lived in a city. And like we see the skyline and stuff outside, which is really cool. And they have a lot of nature here, which is awesome. But I'm just dying to like, walk out your front door. Like I know the setup you have is just like so incredible, and just getting to put my bare feet on the ground right away, not having to walk down
Mm.
8 floors and go find the park, take my shoes off. But yeah, I would say nature above all, though. It's the best.
Imagine if you lived in a giant, like if the building itself was a gigantic tree, so
Oh,
that you were just like 8 floors up with the thing and like close to your neighbors and like close to each other, but you're living in this like magnetic like whomp 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 all the time.
dude, that would be so amazing.
Wouldn't that
That's
be
dream
heaven?
life. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes I like have these dreams and I think I was like a butterfly or something and I'm at a rock concert, but it's in a tree. It's like everybody's hanging out in a pool and there's a band and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just, this tall."
That's awesome. I love that. You're like, I'm there, but I'm a butterfly, and it's a
Yeah.
different experience.
Yeah, the wind would blow and everybody's got to hold on to something. It's like a
Yeah.
wild dream, but I'm like, oh, this is how we're supposed to live. Like, we're supposed to live in these condos of trees
Mm.
together where, like, so you can live up like a kind of a bird and have this, like, viewpoint that makes you feel so, like, protected and with your clan, but you're also, like, still part of this giant earth system. It's like the earth is brought to you, you know?
I love that. I love, so one of my favorite cities I ever lived was San Francisco, because I lived in Oakland, but I would go to San Francisco a lot because of the perspectives. I loved the hills because I really enjoyed being up and getting to look down and seeing the bigger picture. And that's kind of how my brain works too. I'm definitely more of a like seeing things from up instead of being more down. like
Mm-hmm.
more like present in here, which is something I'm working on. But so that sounds so incredible. I so get that. And I feel like I was a bird in a past life. So I feel you.
My dad and I try to play this like perspective game of like if you were only 3 inches tall or if you were 8 inches tall, and like the surfers, like if you were sitting on an ocean line, there's no waves, and like where I live in Florida because the Bahamas are directly in the way. But
Mm.
if you were like 6 inches tall with a surfboard, oh my god, there's just infinite.
That's so true.
I think it's a good thing to like kind of reframe our brains sometimes of like, what if, we were just way
Yeah.
smaller or way bigger? Like, what would things perceive?
Yeah.
What is your greatest achievement that you've had? And this doesn't have to be sports related, just like you reflecting on who you are today.
Yeah, I think my greatest achievement would be forming the relationship with my body that I do now. It really has felt like so much suffering to exist in my body for my life. And it almost felt like I'm going to get emotional again. So sorry
Don't be
that
sorry.
I was constantly living this double life, like this my spirit and soul inside of me, and this just me existing in a body that I felt really limited in. And this is something I continue to struggle with, but I've just made so much progress and had so much opening. But I've existed so closed, I would say, very guarded and protected, but my spirit is so loving and trusting, and just wanting to, yeah, like float around like a fairy kind of is what I would say. But my experience here has felt really different. I felt a lot of suffering and a lot of confusion about the world and even the way that it is, and knowing my place in it and not feeling present in my body, a lot of numbing, a lot of abusing my own body because I was abused, and that's what I learned love was, and how I feel within myself now. And there's so much that I will continue to open to and feel more soft and strong in my body. But I like appreciate myself, and I love myself, and I have compassion for myself, and I didn't have that before. And I just feel like what a gift that is, coming from a place where I never thought I could get it. And just getting more time. I used to always like say I was going to die young because I couldn't really envision like a future. And the more time that I get, the more grateful I am to have had like space and time to like work through my things and open up and connect with myself more, and realize my body is communicating to me. It's not something that's like failing me or is limited in a lot of ways how I used to see it. So just this shift that I've made with myself, um, because it to me it's like been such a service to view the world as well, because I'm, in my opinion, I'm coming from like the darkest place I could ever come from to where I feel now. And I know I'm not alone in these dark places that I've felt. And I want to just tell people like, stick around. Like this, you can really feel this within yourself. And we're meant to, like, we should like our ideas, we should think that we're funny, we should want to hang out with ourselves. And I felt like I grew up in a space in a world that was telling me differently, and I couldn't do that. And I want to be like the most liberated I've ever been, and I have felt very in a prison. And so just getting to experience freedom and liberation and shift into a more loving vessel, I would say, feels like my biggest achievement, because it's something that I know I'm just continuing to go towards even more. And life expands. Like life used to feel like this because I was constricted, and now it's open and the possibilities are open, and you're also holding more of maybe the darkness and the hard things, but you're holding more of like the joy and the playfulness. And that I there was so long I didn't have access to that. So I'm just like so grateful for that. Maybe I'm feeling really good right now. Like when I go back down to my dark place, I'm going to be like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to be here. But yeah, just getting to experience more time in an open, loving place is my biggest achievement, because I've really worked for that, I would
Thank you for
say.
that. Thank you for that vulnerability.
Yeah.
I have felt very similar that I didn't think I was going to live very long because I couldn't see myself as an old woman.
Mm.
And I always felt like I was able to kind of like see like glimpses of what the future would hold. I wrote my will when I was 27. So I totally feel you. And I read a book one time called The Soul's Plan. My mom gave it to me. And it said that on our journey of life that we plan 5 exits for ourselves in case we're not having a good time. And
Wow.
as we draw close to these exits, this really helped me, take it or leave it,
Yeah, no, I
as we
love
draw
this.
close to the exits, we have a choice to hold on to life or to leave it. And because there is suffering, there are lessons that we engage in. And there's this quote Burke Bacharach was talking about. He's an old jazz singer, and he was talking about Amy Winehouse. And Amy Winehouse had just died, and he was kind of like acknowledging singers and artists, because artists are such sensitives and they feel so deeply that, like, when you're writing poetry, you're kind of exposing the darkest places, and it could be really intense to feel deeply and to allow those feelings to like come out, and then to sing those songs over and over. It becomes almost dangerous unless the songs really pull you, unless the songs transform into something positive. And Bert says, if you live long enough, you learn how to live. And what would you say has been like one of the main keys for you of getting to this space with your body?
I think really understanding, having the education about how my body works is really helpful. Like the fact that it helped me learning about my nervous system and learning about just even how my breath works and how the states
How
of
to
our
feel.
body can be in. Yeah, how to feel was has been such a game changer for me because it it number one let me have compassion with myself of why I was being like why was I protecting, why was
Mm.
I repressing my emotions, why was I in denial about certain things. It wasn't safe and I didn't have the support or safety to feel those at that time. And instead of being hard on myself for why I froze in a traumatic moment or why I did this, just realizing my body, like so much of it is primal and instinctual, I didn't have conscious control over it, really helped me like take the blame off because I blame myself for a lot of things and experiences that I've been through. And so I just think education is so important about how our bodies are, and we should as human beings understand how our bodies work. It should be part of school, and that really really helped. And also my girlfriend, like being in a relationship that is so loving
Mm.
and so supportive and so safe, I've never had that. And like to this extent, and the amount we can grow and be when we really have that day to day really shifted and made me know how strong and important it is that we have that our environment is strong and what we want to be. And that also takes the pressure off of ourselves because how much can we really grow if we're in a completely toxic environment? And just being able to understand I don't have to carry the weight of everything that's ever happened to me on my own. There are reasons why things are like, and now I can make shifts into an environment that feels better. Now I can do the work, not coming from a place where I'm shaming myself as much. And so, yeah, education and having like a safe, supportive environment has helped the most.
I've seen so much stuff online. We're gonna like kind of take a little side road. I've
Perfect.
seen a lot of stuff online about what people value in their partners, and it's been like overwhelmingly on the surface level, vain, money, those kind of priorities. What is it that you really truly value in your girlfriend that you think other people should kind of question when they look at their partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, she, like, it's hard to describe safety, right? Like, she allows me to, like, anytime I've ever expressed anything to her that I'm feeling, there's no judgment. She's not shaming me or making me feel bad for what I'm feeling. She's holding space for me and, yeah, validating my experience. I never really had that. I was always feeling invalidated. I felt like I couldn't trust myself or I was being gaslit or whatever. And so, her just being like an open, safe, loving container, which means just giving me the space to like have my full experience and not making me feel bad for it, is really helpful. She's also like, we laugh so much. She's so goofy, she's so silly. We share the same values and want the same things. And this is something that's so funny to me now because I've been in relationships before where we didn't even want the same things. And so I was always like abandoning myself to fit in with this other person, but her and I are growing so much, but like in the same direction. And it's like there's a match. There's like an energetic match where, and obviously you're not going to be perfectly matched. And I love the differences that we have, but you guys should be wanting the same things. Like the same values or growing towards the same things, or else one of you is going to have to really compromise. And if you maybe don't have a strong sense of self, and you're used to like abandoning or people pleasing or fawning in relationships, you might just totally get swept away. And she allows me to like grow into more of who I am, like just while being there. I don't know. I feel like it was like so hard
That's
to put that
beautiful.
into. Okay. I was like, those aren't
No, it's
real like
so
traits,
beautiful.
but okay.
No, they are though, because she's making you feel relaxed. And I think that right now we're living in such like a convenient culture, swipe culture for a lot of people in the dating scene. And they're prioritizing things on the surface level. And on the surface level, it might be cute for, a month or two. But as soon as you start to get into what a real relationship brings out of two people, it can become dissonant. And I was taught, like through the number of books that I've read about relationships, that love is a frequency and it's a
Mm,
frequency match. And sometimes, even when you're in a loving relationship, you can become out of tune together. And how we can dial back in that resonance and that frequency, to me, has everything to do with sustaining a loving long term relationship.
mm,
And yeah, to me, it simplifies it because, you can have a great partner and not be at a frequency match for a couple days. And I love rituals, as you know. So I like to have hard conversations outside, like
mm.
with our feet in the earth. And Eileen McCusick talks a lot about this. She's like, if you think you're not getting along with your partner, just go and lay under a tree. And instead of looking at each other, and kind of projecting that energy, she's like, just talk to the sky. And she's like, you'll find in 20 minutes, whatever was bothering the both of you, like you can kind of come to a new creative solution because you're supported by the magnetics of the earth, and you kind of can retune together and get
Yes.
through it. Because most of us were taught poor communication. Most
100%.
of us like to be a little avoidant, or we become a little anxious with hard conversations. So using nature around us is awesome. And like, I've had some incredible breakups where, like, my parents say it all the time, like, I'm the best breaker upper. And I'm like, that is such a weird thing to say. But I will like smoke a tobacco or smoke a blunt, whatever is like appropriate for that relationship. And we would talk about all of the things that make us not a good fit, and how I want them and I to be on our best path and our best journey. And if we're not on our best path and best journey, that, we should part from each other. And this is why. And like, how can I help in this transition? So I've been able to, maintain friendships with a lot of my exes, but I swear it's because like we smoke a giant cigar together.
Oh, 100.
And just kind of like breathe through the discomfort and kind of ceremonially move through the dissolution of something that's beautiful. Because
Mm,
if we break things off in a like an intense way, where we no longer we've lost that respect for that person, or now every single beautiful memory that you've built with that person becomes a little poisonous in your brain. And when you pass your favorite restaurant with them, instead of just having this like beautiful little bittersweet acknowledgement, then you're kind of pulled into this like negative thought form. So I think like weaving ourselves in relationship and learning how to communicate, like we can use nature
I
and
love
just
that.
being outside, like not having hard conversations inside, because you can feel it in the air when you're walking in and people are tense. You're like, oh God, I
Yes.
shouldn't be here. And
I
it kind of
love
gets
that.
trapped.
Yeah. I've never thought, like, I always feel like I'm resourcing nature in my own life. And my girlfriend and I like to spend a lot of time outside, but I've never thought about like resourcing and bringing it in during tough conversations. That's such a good idea.
Like, I remember having like some really intense conversations with one of my exes, and we would take a walk under the stars, and we would just go out and take a walk and argue across the street, and then but somehow we would hold hands on the way back home.
Yeah.
But having this kind of openness to throw our energies. And
Hmm.
sometimes, even like if you're around intense people, like my mom, I love her, she's like all electricity, but sometimes she'll be expressing something she's passionate about while looking at me, and I'm like, Mom, this is like, can you just say what you're saying, but like face the tree over there? And the next thing you know, it's easier to receive because she's
Wow.
not inundating me with her field. And it's different when we start looking at ourselves like 10 feet wide.
Yeah,
Everything that's within your 10-foot bubble can either make you want to collapse or make you want to relax open. And
hmm,
in heated conversations, if you have all of this room around you that's like open to airflow and wind, I just think we can get through tough things quicker.
totally. I love that so much. And even I resonate with like just when people are talking about something like if they're talking about something they're angry about but looking at me, I'm feeling the anger from them and like they're angry at me, and that just makes so much sense about yeah, where the attention of where they're speaking to goes as well. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I'm happy that that was good for you. I'm gonna have a couple more questions for
Okay,
you, if you don't mind.
perfect.
What advice would you give to a 15-year-old that loves soccer?
Oh God. I mean, so much. Number one, just like that sport is something to love. Like that's such a good thing to love, like on its own, the sport, and just like really having that teenager almost explore that relationship, why they love it. Because I think this is also helpful for when you have to eventually transition out of anything. What is that sport giving you? Because we can
Hmm.
access those things in other stuff. Like I found this with soccer. Soccer was my freedom, my creativity, where I felt presence. And when that got taken away a bunch of times or it's been distorted, I still am working on my relationship with soccer because of a lot of things that happened within my sport. But the things that it gave me, I can find it in other things, and it helps build that back up. So almost
Hmm.
like honoring that is so real for them and that sport is awesome, but also really like understanding what it's giving to you, because we can find that in other things. And I do think it's really helpful to not put all of yourself into one thing, especially as a child growing up. And there is so much, there's way more pressure now in the youth to be more intense in the sport. There's so much more money in it. You have to do things a certain way to get seen by colleges and get scholarships. So it is going to be a bump. It's going to be a ride like this if you're just fully attached to soccer. But if you can pull back and understand the things that soccer gives you, maybe you can find different avenues to experience those things when soccer is at a low, when you didn't have a good performance, when someone's being hard on you or you're not getting along with your coach. That's a big thing that I would share. And I think that also helps build a sense of self instead of just an identity in the sport, because we get a certain feeling from the things that we love, and those things like are to me part of us. You know, they say we are the things that we love, but it's like the things it gives us in return too. I don't know if I was like going on a rant there, but just I think that builds into what I said about knowing yourself, because you will basically try and get pulled by a bunch of different people in this sport if you continue on, and just really understanding why you're showing up every day will give you like more autonomy over yourself in that space and just trusting yourself, I would say.
Wow. I think that's amazing advice. And even when you said it, it's like, like what I loved so much about golf was the nature and my ability to project my consciousness through a field and like
Mm,
work with the wind and the trees in order to shape. It was like kind of the art of it is what
yeah.
I loved. Like the shot shaping of it was just, it's like 3D art. And like I get to be out there in nature. So wow, I wish I had that advice as a kid. Because it really wasn't all about winning for me. Like
Right.
when I dial in, it was about how well I could stay present. I think that's extraordinary advice. There's another question that comes up often with parents. And parents are like, what does my kid have to do to play D1? And I'm always like, they need to want to, not you.
Hmm.
They can pursue scholarships in 1 million different ways. They can write essays and get money. There's free money everywhere. But if you don't actually want the scholarship, don't do it, because it's a
Hmm.
35-hour a week sport. Like, it's some parents are more driven than the kids, and it creates this extra pressure on the kids. And you could see it as someone who's in it, and you're just looking at the kid and you're like, man, they're not all in, but their parent wants them to be all in, and that's not the point.
No, it's not. It's and that's everywhere. Even when I used to coach and stuff, I just would say, and obviously this isn't always the case, but just like the parents can ruin the experience. Even like from a coach trying to have like lead these children and have them just like have fun and get better. And there was always some issues with parents that just needed to creep into the space to talk about being the best or talk about what achievement was next. And you're just like missing the point. you know? So I feel that.
Yes. I'm happy that we touched that. This is my last question for you. You became a certified coach with me and honored. I actually remember when your app came in and Dan was like, holy shit, we got a
Aw.
World Cup player. And I was like, well, like that sounds like a great coach because it sounds like A, your body's going to need it, and B, you're going to bring this work to a lot of people in your industry. Can you just mention or touch upon the fact, like, why, like, what called you into the program?
Yeah, I just felt I had been watching your work for a while and really was even when I came back and played this last season with Gotham in Ireland, I was like learning from you online just about fashion stuff. I remember talking to my trainers being like, I think I have a fascia issue. Like it's not because they couldn't figure this out and whatever. And I was like, whatever, trying to explain it in my little knowledge that I had. But no one even knew, like, people aren't talking about fascia really in that space, which is crazy to me. But yeah, just really, number one is just like a resonance that I felt that I trusted in what you were talking about. And knowing there was more than what I've been taught and the things that you were sharing made so much sense. And now that I've like gone through the program, I understand why they made sense because there's like so much truth in it, obviously. And like I said, I was coming from a place of feeling so constricted, really stiff, like dry, like the way that you're saying fascia is when we're not taking care of it properly is how I was physically feeling in my body. And so like finding this work was I always knew that I'm not meant to exist this way. Like I'm supposed to have flow. I'm supposed to be fluid because that's what I feel like I am. And this body should be an expression of my spirit and my soul. I get to live in here. Finding the work in the program was like this is like such a path to get this vitality back into my body, get this fluidity that I know has always existed. So I feel like I was really, really called to the fascia stuff. And the breath work to me has been like such an extra bonus because I knew that I didn't know the importance of it, I think, when I first started it. And now it's like so important. Obviously, it's like the thing we need to survive, number one. And just seeing the way that my breath has changed. And I was seeing like a myofunctional therapist as well, like for my tongue. Just there's so many nuggets of wisdom in everything that you teach. Like you could go a million ways. But yeah, I think it was this resonance. It was as a pathway for me to get into the body that I knew I was always supposed to have here. And something that I believe every single person should know and have access to this kind of education and knowledge. And so wanting to know it for myself so I could embody it and then speak to it and help other people also get there was kind of like where I was coming from when I felt really called to join it.
Well, we are honored to have you part of the musical breathwork family, and I'm really excited to see what you can bring for the next gen of soccer players.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Sinead. If people wanted to follow you and watch more of your journey, where should they check you out?
I guess I'm just on Instagram, which my Instagram is Sinlous, Sinlu,
We'll
which
put it
doesn't
in
really make
the
sense. Okay.
in the show.
It's
That's
not even
okay.
my name.
You're at the beginning of the next journey, and
Totally.
you know, if you end up with a website because you're coaching people more often, we'll go back and we'll add that there. So
Perfect.
maybe look again.
Yes, come back in a year. Let's see what happens. If you're seeing this
Yes.
in 2026, check out my website.
Yeah, precisely. There we go. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we call this good?
No, I'm feeling good. I felt like we touched on a lot. That was fun.
Thank you for opening up yourself, for being vulnerable. I really felt your energy, and it is a little bit of a nuance to connect remotely and share part of your soul. So I am very, very grateful. I've never been able to interview a pro soccer player, and from my own personal experience, I know that this is super needed for up and coming athletes. So I hope this like falls right into the perfect hands, into the perfect parents with the perfect kids, so that they can learn from both of our lessons and prepare for their greatest, whatever that may look like in a sport or not. So thanks for tuning in.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.